I mean, yes, it's a platform for them. This is a platform for us, and like you said, there is that quid pro quo. But yeah, ultimately, when I heard the two of you saying, what's that look on your face?
What pro quids? What
Quid pro quo.
Okay, well, and look at you throwing
This
the
for
Latin.
that.
This for that.
Yeah.
Latin. Okay, there you go, man. I am blown away. I was like,
See?
whoa.
I only pretend to be stupid.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. It is time for more Law Light. It's brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtree, FWHlegal.com. We're coming to you loud and clear today from 530 Frederick Street at their high-rise white brick edifice. And it's good to be back in the office with you, PJ. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm having a bit of a life crisis right now, but I'll get through it.
Well, those things happen, and it's good to know that you have people around you that care.
Absolutely.
And, we got your back, buddy. Not to use a Roads and Roads,
Hey, Rhodes, that's for you.
Yeah. There we go.
That's
we
a
copied,
freebie.
Yeah. A little bit of promo of our competition, but it's all good. But yeah, it's good to be back. I'm walking around in a boot.
Yeah. I meant to ask you earlier. I feel bad that I didn't actually. How's it doing?
We're doing good. It's a process of healing. The Achilles tendon takes a long time to heal, so you can't put a whole lot of, trauma to it. No much pressure. So, even when I have the boot on, I try to keep right now minimize my walking around the office. So I kind of feel like people are like, they're like, can I bring you anything? And I get tired of that. I'm so independent. It's like, but everybody's been great. So we're doing good.
So I shouldn't have brought you that pillow to prop your leg
Yeah,
up,
right. I don't recall that, but that we'll let other people believe that's the type of employee you are. So we have several things to talk about today that I'd like to get to. One is an announcement, so to speak, of the firm, our newest team member.
Yep.
Our number continues to grow, and that's a great thing. It got to the point where you actually needed some help, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very much needed.
And so we set out to find PJ Part 2, and that we learned real quickly was impossible. But we interviewed and Zoomed and talked to several people, looked at a lot of demo reels.
Yeah.
And finally, an interesting guy came along, Vincent Saragino.
Saragino?
I didn't even ask him in his interview. I just kept calling him Vincent.
Yeah.
Saragino or Saragino?
Yeah.
Saragino, I bet.
After you sent the email out saying that he was joining the team, I went back there and I asked Amy and Kelly and Kathy. I was like, hey, you all ready for, the next me?
Yeah, right.
And they started laughing and they were like, oh, yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then they asked me if I knew him. And then they asked the same thing, how do you pronounce his last name? And truthfully, I've never asked him that.
I think it's Vincent Saragino.
Saragino. Probably, yeah.
Right. And I've checked. He's not, that I can see, no ties to the mob.
That we're aware of.
We're aware of. But with a name like Vincent Saragino.
Mm-hmm.
So we may have our own little hitman right here amongst us. We'll have to get to the bottom of all that. We'll make sure to have him as a guest here on the podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
But
not to throw Kathy under the bus, she came to me and she goes, I don't know what the problem is, but I can't find him on Facebook. And then she was having several Facebook issues, but I said, well, show me what you're doing. So she took me back there and she typed him into her phone and she was putting Victor
Oh, well, Victor
She
is
was
not going
typing
to come
in
up.
Victor,
Vincent and Victor.
And then she said that his last name kind of reminded her of Sargento. So she
Cheese.
Said, so she said she thinks of cheese every time she sees his name.
Well, today she told me that.
Okay.
But not to rain on your parade, but she told me that, and that she was going to call him Mr. Cheese, and I was like, look, he has to be here for a while before he earns a nickname.
That's true.
Your nickname for me is Peach. I just call you Peach, right? And it's not PJ. I say PJ like on the podcast, but around here when I need you, I say, hey, Peach, right?
Yeah.
He has to be here and we're not going to call him Cheese because that sounds too much like Peach. So we're not going to, and Cheese is a stupid nickname, and I'm not going to do that to the poor guy.
Well, this morning I was calling him Victor Cheese.
Victor Cheese. Well,
he's not even here yet. And he's already got.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't know what he's getting involved in.
Well, when he listens to this podcast, he's going to know.
We'll tell him. He'll say, "You got to listen to this next podcast." So anyway, in all seriousness, your work was just backlogged, not because of a lack of work ethic, but just because of workload.
Right.
And then we pull you away so many times during the week and say, hey, can you download this? Or, hey, can you go out and look at these video cameras to see if it caught any footage of the wreck? And so with all those things, plus our business plan for some of the ways we want to get involved with nonprofits,
right?
We had to have another body, and then it's sort of an interesting hire because if somebody has the skill set to be a legal assistant, in other words, they type, they understand the jargon, they're good with word processing and spreadsheets and things like that,
right?
Finding somebody that has the experience to generate good video product, and record it, edit it, and creativity and that kind of stuff. But his demo reel was excellent.
Yeah, it looked great.
And he uses a lot of the same software that we use, and so it is a big day for us to have found him, locked him in, and he's coming on board to help you.
So. I'm super excited. I talked to him on Facebook. And, he seems like a really cool, down-to-earth guy. And it was funny because, he told me that he was really nervous because he works with Ted Haycraft that does, like, the movie review shows and stuff. So he knew of me already. So he kind of had this idea, but he didn't know really how I am. He told me, he goes, I was really kind of concerned that I was going to come in there and you guys were going to be like, why did we hire this noob?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, let me tell you, I said, I guarantee you, looking at your experience, that I'm probably going to be learning stuff from you.
Well, it's a good thing. Every day, I can be in conversations with Davin, who's been practicing law not even 2 years. And he'll say something. In fact, it happened today. He mentioned something. It was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Am I a more experienced lawyer than Davin? Absolutely. Does that experience then mean that at this point I'm able to do things he's not ready to do? Yes. But does that mean I'm a better lawyer? It doesn't, and we learn from each other and we make each other better as attorneys in the office. I'm always having back and forth with Bart or Tyler or Holly about cases, and it's the combined wisdom. It's putting thoughts together and ideas and creativity that makes something work. And I think that you having that as a resource, you for him and him for you, will just make the product of our video. You know how we've always struggled with saying that you also do the graphic arts? It's like you're like, I am not a graphic artist. Remember? Right. I thought of a great term. Instead of that, we're going to say that it's video production and media arts.
Okay.
Yeah. See, it's just enough different to where it doesn't sound like graphic art. It's media arts.
Yeah, because I've always said I don't consider myself a graphic designer, even though I do dabble in graphic design.
Right.
But there are people out there who are trained and have gone to school for graphic design.
There's a whole degree program for it.
Like I know just enough to be dangerous, but not enough to necessarily compete with the big boys.
You don't have to anymore. I just solved that. You're a media artist.
Awesome.
And
I'll take it.
Yeah. And Vincent, if you're listening, there you are also a media artist for Foreman Watson Holtry.
Perfect.
So that's some of the big news. One of the other things I wanted to get to today, Peach, was we've had some great guests, and we're getting super feedback on this whole idea that we wanted to accomplish in 2021, and that was to I keep saying reach across the aisle because that's such a political term, but to reach across the aisle to other businesses, businesswomen, businessmen in town, and say, hey, tell us about what you do on a daily basis, and educate ourselves about their trade, but also get our name out. And so we kind of thought, well, let's just see where that goes. And we've now done it 3 times. Most recent was Nathan from Funeral
Haley
Home.
McGinnis.
Yeah, but what's the name of the thing?
He has Morris Family Services.
Morris Family, that's right. And that was last week, and it was incredible. I showed you today that it's gone over 1,000 people have seen it on Facebook, and that we've had a number of downloads of it, which is great, and it gave him, and we actually were able to get to an area where we think we can help each other's businesses beyond just what happened.
Yeah, I remember you all talking about that, so I thought that was really cool. How you're, that helps. Not just, yes, it's a platform for them. This is a platform for us. And like you said, there is that quid pro quo. But yeah, ultimately, when I heard the two of you saying, what's that look on your face?
What, quids what?
Quid pro quo.
Okay, well, and look at you throwing
this
the
for
Latin.
that.
This for that.
Yeah.
Latin. Okay, there you go, man. I am blown away. I was like,
See?
whoa.
I only pretend to be stupid.
Say it 10 times.
Well.
Quid pro quo. Say it. Let's see how many times you can say it without.
Quid pro quo. I can't even do it.
Come on.
I can't even do it
Let's
once
see if we
fast.
can get 3.
Okay, quid pro quo, quid pro quo, quid pro quo.
So everybody out there listening, when you listen to this, just hit pause and for a few times try to say quid pro quo and see how well you can do it, because it is truly a tongue twister.
Yeah.
But to drop it in the middle of a sentence, just that was effortless, PJ. That was beautiful. That was
I have
a thing
my
of
moments.
beauty.
I have my moments.
Beautiful. All right, go ahead.
What was I talking about?
We were talking about
this for that.
Yes.
No. So, platform for them, platform for us. But ultimately, what it does is it, like you said, it connects us. And I thought that was really cool when the two of you were like, "Hey, we should get together, and this is how we can work together as maybe some kind of partnership." So I didn't really see that coming necessarily, but I think it's a great fit.
And who knows what happens? If we can help his business in any way, we get a few clients because of people that are pre-planning, but they don't have the legal part of their affairs taken care of. In fact, one of their funeral homes that they have just taken over is over in Ohio County, and Holly had actually met with Nathan before just to give him some ideas of how he may get his roots in, because Ohio Countyans want to be loyal to Ohio Countyans, and since he's an outsider, how can he combat that? And Holly met with him and gave him some, and he hasn't put 2 and 2 together yet that Holly is the same one that.
That's funny.
So yeah, it's gonna be great. I just haven't had time to call Nathan back, but we will. Now, the week before that, we had Ryan Ruttman. Mm-hmm. And I noticed the book's back on my credenza. So if you thumb through it or look through it, and
I don't read much.
I know. But
it doesn't have enough pictures.
I'm gonna read it. But beyond that, he brought in some really interesting data for us to discuss about the increase in the market of home sales despite the pandemic. And just sort of how he went from being, one thing and into another thing, and his whole outlook on how to serve and how to help people in that industry. Again, a great interview.
Yeah.
And Ryan was great and so good to us by putting it on both his personal page and on his professional page. He promoted the podcast, and so again, a great guest. And our first guest, of course, was David from David Clark from Cromwell Media, and that was a day where we talked some about sports and some about y'all's background and then his whole life history.
And I knew I'd known David for a really long time because I said in the interview before we had him on that I'm pretty sure it was OCTC, maybe before that, and I completely my memory, as you know, can suck. But that's going back quite some ways. So I had forgotten we actually went to school together. Right. But he was one year ahead of me.
So yeah, you
when
were under him. How those kind of guys are. But anyhow, so it's now let's so it's been good. It's been good. We've learned a few things, and we've kind of talked about what we want to do better in this. Let's go ahead and forecast. I'm going to talk about a couple of guests that I've got us lined up to, and then we have one I know you're working on.
Yep.
It's just a matter of timing for that. But so we've got Larry Hayden coming from EM Ford, who is our neighbor, EM Ford Insurance. They're our neighbor. We share a parking lot with them right here on Frederica Street.
Yeah.
They are the high-rise brown brick edifice that's right next door to us. And here's why I'm excited. We've had many podcasts where I have talked about the importance of the right kind of insurance. We've talked about insurance issues like the difference between uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage and how that comes into play, and what is PIP coverage, and why is my own insurance company paying my medical bills when it wasn't my fault. We've had all these issues. We're going to have someone that sells insurance in what is basically called private lines instead of commercial lines. And he does some commercial, but it's mostly private, just like to you and I.
Yep.
And going to talk about different issues with homeowners, different issues. What is an umbrella policy? What is the difference between comprehensive and collision, and things like that. And we'll have, I think it'll be very educational for our listeners, and it crosses so much into what we do every day, because insurance is behind every one of our cases. So we're looking forward to having Larry. Then 2 weeks later, we're going to have John McNulty, who is the owner of Gateway Urgent Care here in Owensboro, and we'll let him tell us about this, but they're going to be opening a second location here in Owensboro.
That's awesome.
Just up the road from us on Frederica. They own, I think, 3, maybe 4 urgent cares over in Newburgh and Evansville.
Oh, wow.
And so John has really helped me in understanding the role of urgent care in healthcare. I would say at least half of our car wreck clients, they don't have some type of a family doctor relationship, and so they get seen at the emergency room, and they have instructions to follow up with their medical provider if their condition worsens or if it doesn't get better. And since they don't have a family doctor, what happens is you have this urgent care situation where they can go and they can be seen by a physician or a physician's assistant or APRN, and at least get some follow-up direction on what to do. John is going to talk to us about that, and he's also going to talk to us about COVID, some interesting stuff about COVID.
Awesome.
So I've got him lined up. He is not a doctor.
I was getting ready to say, you had said earlier that he wasn't like a medical doctor.
We're going to be coming at this from the whole business perspective of urgent cares, and then again, he's been helpful to me in business and things like that. So John McNulty. Now, tell us who you've been started communications with, but we don't have a date set. I think it's going to be really soon. But tell us who you've got lined up.
Right. This was a conversation that actually started last year, but I've been talking to Jeffrey Reddick. Now, he's a Kentucky native. Like me, he dabbles in the arts, and he had moved off to L.A. to get into the film industry. He had written a spec script for what was supposed to be an X-Files episode. Glenn Morgan and his partner had gotten their hands on it, and they were just like, dude, this is such a great idea. It should be a feature film. Well, it went on to become the Final Destination franchise, which, if anybody's ever seen a log truck, you think of the Final Destination franchise. He has impacted popular culture, and I'd gotten connected with him probably about 4 years ago, and it was just kind of reached out. I was like, hey, I didn't even know you were from Kentucky. And Final Destination was one of those films that highly influenced me, and it didn't help my hypochondria any. So, so it's one of those films that always stuck with me. And so when I found out he's from Kentucky, I just kind of reached out, and I mean, he's super down to earth and a really cool guy. And we started talking, and next thing I know, he's like, hey, here's my phone number, give me a call. And we sparked a friendship from that, and we've stayed in touch. And we've talked a whole lot. So last year, whenever we were bringing on some guests, I was trying to get him on, but he was in the process of writing and directing a brand new film called Don't Look Back, which just recently released, I would say, within the last few months. It's on VOD and all that. So, but he was super busy promoting that and and plus there was the production, post-production, and all that. So he never really had time to be able to do it. But now he finally was like, "Hey, I think I've got some time available." So we're working on getting him on the show.
Time when we can, right? That'd be super. That'd be super. And like I said, we have not had a guest yet where there was like when we had the challenge of having you get people that are every one of the conversations that we had with those guys was we saw where the world of law overlaps the world of movie making or overlaps the world of art. Law touches everything. Not just, it may not be what we practice, but the attorneys here, you've been educated on all these areas of things. It's just what we've specialized in, maybe a little different, but it's interesting to get their perspective. So we'll look forward to that interview. And today we kicked around a few other ideas, and we're going to have some law enforcement officers. We're going to have another, first responders. I'd like to get a firefighter on,
right.
And I'd like to get one of our local people that are involved in local government. I think it would be important to get maybe the clerk of the court over here and things like that. So we're just going to continue to put our tentacles out, so to speak, and see who we get, and continue to have some entertaining yet useful podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked out really well so far, and there's a lot of really different and interesting and complex careers out there that you don't hear a lot about.
Right.
And so far, the three that we've talked to have been really interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's in store for, around the corner.
Well, we'll get it done and keep moving that way. Now, before we conclude, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about an area of some legal information that we've never covered on the podcast, and the only reason I mention it is because it has consumed a bunch of my time over the last couple weeks, and I was like, at one point I'd like to speak for about 5 minutes on the podcast about it. As much as we like to be right all the time in our cases, we're not.
Right.
And sometimes we think we're right, we prove that we're right, and we win, but the other people think, well, we can't accept that we were wrong. That brings about a whole area of law that I don't think we've ever discussed, and it's called appeals. Appeals is nothing more than saying, I want to go to the next highest court to get them to reconsider what was done in the court that I was in, okay? So in Kentucky, we have an appellate court system. We have 2 levels of appeals. So if your case starts in the lowest court in Kentucky, it starts in district court. And that's the lowest level of court. They'll do things like small claims. They do things like probate. They do things like small criminal matters, misdemeanor matters, speeding tickets, things like that. So that kind of gives you a general sampling of district court. Now, let's say that we have a small claims issue in district court, and the court ruled against me. And so I was like, well, I think the court made a mistake. I can appeal that case up to the circuit court, the circuit court. Every county in Kentucky has a circuit court, okay? Every county in Kentucky has at least one district court. Now, a lot of counties in Kentucky have family court, which is the jurisdictional equivalent of a circuit court, but it only hears family court matters, child custody, visitation, divorce, things like that. But if you don't like what happens to you in circuit court, now circuit court can be a court of original jurisdiction, which means you can start a lot of cases in circuit court. And from a criminal standpoint, felony cases go up to circuit court. Okay. They're heard in circuit court. In a civil case, as long as your claim involves a matter of more than $5,000, you can file it in circuit court. What happens, you can originate your case in circuit court, you can go all the way through it, I'll have a trial, and then at the end of the trial, if the jury or the judge rules against you and you believe there was an error made, a legal error made in the decision-making process, you appeal it to the Court of Appeals. In Kentucky, we have a Court of Appeals, and what happens, there's 3 appellate judges are assigned to every case. And we have a number of Court of Appeals judges. And you never know what panel you're going to get, but it's a 3-judge panel. So then what happens is you notice your appeal. It goes into a briefing process. There is a small effort to maybe have some settlement discussion before you go through all that.
Right.
But by that time, the sides are usually so entrenched that you just don't get any traction. So you go through it. You have a briefing process. You have an oral arguments. If both sides ask for oral arguments, usually you'll get oral arguments, but sometimes not. The court will say, we don't need to hear this. And so then what happens if you lose at the Court of Appeals and we have a Kentucky Supreme Court. And the Kentucky Supreme Court, you have to ask permission. You don't just get to appeal to the court of the Supreme Court. You have to ask for them to consider whether or not you ask them for discretionary review. And if they grant discretionary review, they say, okay, we'll look at it. But if they deny your discretionary review, then your case is dead at that point. And the reason I bring this up is we're in the middle of appealing a case to the Court of Appeals, and so it's a real archaic but yet interesting process. You have to get the record of the circuit court certified, and it has to be sent, up to the Court of Appeals. You have to make sure that everything that was done in circuit court is logged and digested properly, so that you can make reference to it when you brief. And so we've been spending a lot of time on an appellate issue, but it's one thing that people don't think about a lot of times because they want instant justice.
Right.
And sometimes we're involved in these cases, PJ, for years and years and years. The matter we are appealing is something that occurred, all right, this is amazing, but it occurred in 2017.
Oh, wow.
All right, so this is 2021, and it's just now hitting the Court of Appeals. And it'll be in the Court of Appeals for another year.
Now, do they typically take that long to make it through the process?
This situation, that took a long time to get the case ready for trial because there was 20 depositions taken. There was a number of attorneys involved. It was a complex matter. And then we had a delay because of, COVID, but we finally got the case tried. We went to trial. We lost at trial. We won half of the issue that we wanted to win, but the other half we lost. And so it kind of made the whole case a loss, So we are appealing. But I think it's important. The reason I wanted to spend a few minutes here on Law Lite to discuss it is that a small percentage of cases go to the Court of Appeals. All right.
Okay. Well, that answered my next question.
Yeah, it is. In our contract, we have a contract with our clients in contingency fee cases that say, look, if we get your case settled before filing suit, if we have to file suit and go to mediation, if we have to file suit and go all the way through trial, your fee is 1/3. However, if we go through a trial and either side appeals, us or the other side, then it goes up to 40%. And do you know that part of the contract never, ever raises questions to clients? They're like, you probably deserve it if we have to go through this whole thing again. And that's exactly what happens. You basically are redoing the entire case only in written form, and so your fee goes up. I would say that the number of cases I've taken to the Court of Appeals in my 20-year career, 24-year career, 20 or less, have gone up to the court. Yeah, in fact, it because my rule book, I keep a rule book right here. It's the purple one over on the shelf there. It's on my desk or it's right there all the time. And it is worn out from rules 1 to 69. But when you get to the 70s, which are the appellate rules, they are nice, crisp pages, and then we just aren't in them. You're not marking them up and putting notes in it and things like that. And each year we get a new one of those. And sure enough, by the time we're throwing that one out or putting it down in the library, same thing. So the reason it's important for people to understand is once you get into going into the appellate process, it is a slow process.
Is the Court of Appeals the be-all, end-all? Or what happens if you get through the Court of Appeals and then you still feel like you didn't get a fair deal?
Like I said, you can ask for discretionary review. That's saying, hey, Supreme Court, here's why you should grant us a review of what the Court of Appeals just did.
Okay.
And you have to provide a brief summary to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court is only going to hear things that they think are really important to public policy, really important for public safety, really important for, antitrust. Just things.
So it's tough to get to
It
that
is,
process.
because what they may say is, this has been already... can you hear me now? You just knocked your earphones out of your ears.
For those who can't see this, I just yanked my earbuds out.
If they don't feel like, if they feel like, hey, we've spoken to this before, we've already addressed this, and we don't need to change our precedent on this, then they won't grant discretionary review. There's all kinds of reasons for them to, and all kinds of reasons for them not to. But yes, if the Supreme Court of Kentucky says, no, we are not going to hear that, it's done. You're finished. Win or lose. I'll tell you one war story, and then we can.
Okay.
How's that?
Sounds good.
Great war story. A good friend of mine, Lane Seiske, who I've mentioned several times to you, he and I litigated a case that was a death that occurred on mine property. The problem is that the guy that was killed was not a miner. Like, in other words, he was not employed by the mine. Okay, he was employed by a subcontractor of a contractor that was doing a certain kind of job on mine property. We had to fit him into the definition of a miner based upon statutes and regs so that we could claim that the mine had a statutory duty in this situation, okay? Because outside of that, we couldn't prove they had a duty. We litigated the case, taken lots of depositions, and the mine moved for a summary judgment and won. And so we appealed the case to, this was in federal court. We were in federal court. So we appealed the case to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which sits in Cincinnati, but hears Kentucky cases. And so we argued the case in front of the Sixth Circuit. The Sixth Circuit says, hey, there is a very important issue that we think the Kentucky Supreme Court needs to weigh in on, and that is this definition of what a miner is. So we want you to take that case in front of the Kentucky Supreme Court. We have to brief it and argue it in front of the Kentucky Supreme Court. The case in front of the Sixth Circuit, and then when the Sixth Circuit sent us to the Kentucky Supreme Court, and what we did in front of the Kentucky Supreme Court went well for us. We felt it went really well.
Right.
And so did the mine. And so the mine starts throwing money at settling the case. We needed X. Our client had said, get us X, and yes, we'll cut it free. They started at M and made it to O, P, Q, and they were coming up toward X. They had made an offer that was not quite, it was almost $200,000 different from where we needed to be. I mean, that's how close we were getting. And so we were going to go back and we were going to shorten the distance in that gap. And probably it would have taken 2 more phone calls and be done. And I get a phone call from the Supreme Court of Kentucky, and they said, we rendered our opinion today, and it's going to come out. I was like, okay, great. Well, we lost. And so Lane and I, it's the hardest punch he and I have ever taken in a case.
Wow.
Because we had done great in the Sixth Circuit. We had done great in front of the Kentucky Supreme Court, and we felt really good. Yeah. Our feeling wasn't just us. They knew it, and they were offering money to try to get it to go away. It was going to go away, and a couple more days. It would have, and then they ended up getting out and not paying a dime.
Had the court waited like 3 days, you'd have gotten it settled.
And then we could have told the court that they don't need them to rule to the case is settled.
Oh, my gosh. The one that got away.
The one that got away. That's exactly right. And Lane and I, to this day, when we're talking, we still talk about that case.
Yeah.
So, but, you live, you learn. And that's a part of the risk that we take in this line of work,
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time, that we do this for people. And a lot of times the risk is ours financially and from a time perspective. It's everything. We invest so much into these cases, and sometimes you're not going to win them. A lot accomplished today. A good episode. Just trying to catch up and kind of forecast where we're going with guests, and then a little bit of law.
Yeah, as usual, got a lot coming up.
Law done light. Law done light. Law light.
Right. Less legal.
Less legal.
That's great law, less legal. Law done light.
Thank you. So everybody, this has been more Law Light. Coming at you from 530 Frederick Street, the high-rise white brick edifice. PJ and Travis have no more to say on these topics.
The quid pro quo of the Big O.
Oh, no. Say it 10 times as fast as you can. Until next time, bye.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of 2 mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!